Super excited to have all of you here joining us today. Of course, we are talking about leveraging technology to enhance the student athlete experience on your campuses. Y'all are all game plan users, but you all have kind of different, uses for the platform. You also use some of our, different things between Athlete Viewpoint, Compass users, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into a conversation about how to leverage all of those things to enhance the athlete experience, as I mentioned. But what I would love to do first is just go around and do kind of a brief introduction, name, maybe your title and what campus you're on, and we'll roll from there. Roberto, you are on my top left, so let's start with you.
All right, yeah, thank you, Taylor. Hi, everyone. My name is Roberto Sasso. I'm the Associate Athletic Director for Student Athlete Development and Leadership over at Seton University, and I've been in this role for about 9 years now.
Awesome, thank you. Christina, I've got you up next.
Good. Hi, everybody. My name is Christina Paone. I am the head men's and women's golf coach at Walsh University. We are a Division II school located in North Canton, Ohio. In addition to that, I'm also the Assistant Sports Information Director, our Senior Women's Administrator, and I am the Deputy Title IX Coordinator for Athletics.
All the things.
All
Marlon,
the things, guys.
Marlon, I got you on my screen next.
Good afternoon. My name is Marlon Dechausay. I am the Senior Associate Athletic Director for Student Athlete Welfare at the University of Memphis. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. And last but certainly not least, Ragean, we'll kick it to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ragean Hill. I'm the Executive Associate Athletic Director here at UNC Charlotte. I'm also our Senior Women Administrator, our Deputy Title IX Coordinator, and our Chief Diversity Officer for the Athletic Department. I handle all of our internal operations and student welfare.
Awesome. Happy to have you. As I said, happy to have all of you on today and excited to get into this conversation. So without further ado, I'm going to open up this first one to anybody. So when you think about the student athlete experience on your campuses, what are the elements of the holistic experience that are kind of the most important to you as you're thinking about technology?
I guess I'll go. Marlon, sure. You good? Christina? For us, it's always been a little background. I started my career on the academic side of the house, but all of us, when we first started in the business, we were the student athlete development person, we were the learning specialist and the academic advisor. So when we look at a holistic approach, even looking at my past experience as a student athlete, what can I provide the student athletes that I did not receive in college, and how much more can I connect them to campus and the campus resources that we have is what we try to do. A lot of times, I've been on a lot of different campuses, we try to do everything in-house, and we've got great people on campus doing great work in the leadership roles and the financial literacy roles. So making sure that they know where the Career Service Center is and working with our people over there. And again, with financial literacy, and then having them come to our space as well. So when these students see folks on campus, they know exactly who they are. And it's more a homegrown approach rather than just doing everything in-house. What the technology is going to do, it's going to provide us a platform that also our campus partners can tap into and utilize and build programming that is specific to athletics that we're able to deploy out, but we're also being able to get a refresher every year on what that department wants to do, instead of the programming being there for the same thing year after year. It'll allow us to update our own programming a lot faster, and with the people that are on campus that are helping us do programming for our student athletes.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Anybody else want to jump in on that before we move on to the next?
No, I think Ragean hit on some really good points there. And I think one of the key things she really hit on is that integration with campus. And I think that's huge. I think when you think about, I think when athletics started, it was sort of like, oh, we got to do all this stuff ourselves, right? And everything was in-house. And I think we've really moved to more of this is a global society, right? And part of that global society is giving our student athletes opportunity to network, and that is also networking with folks on campus, whether it's other students, professors, giving them different opportunities and really getting them out of that athletics kind of bubble or silo. So I think that's extremely important. And when really with all the things going on in the world, it's, making sure that you're constantly evaluating your programming. I think in the past, people would have a set program. We're really good at what we do, and we do it every single year. And I think right now the students have changed, our environment has changed, and that's really where technology allows us to be a lot more flexible and really to adjust to the students we're getting today a lot quicker in their needs. So
that actually is a great segue, Marlon. So I'm gonna shift into kind of a twofer here. So Marlon just said it. There's a lot happening in the world right now. Specifically, there's been a lot happening in the world in the last 2 years, and college athletics, that landscape is it's not exempt, right, to all the things that have gone on. We've seen, kind of different mental health issues not only exist, but kind of continue to rise in the last 2 years as student athletes are trying to navigate the differences of COVID, pre-COVID versus post-COVID life on campus, name, image, and likeness, of course, the transfer portal, the Alston case, all these things have continued to impact the student athlete experience. So how challenging is it, given all those continuous changes that are happening, to kind of keep up with your job responsibilities? And almost every single one of you names, well, this is my title, but I'm also this designation and this designation and this. So how do you keep up with all the things that you are supposed to do job wise, in addition to the changing landscape of college athletics?
I'll try. I'll start us off here. It's been really, really unique these last, now we're pretty much 2 years at this point, but the way we've talked about it at Seton Hall is we're almost dealing with two pandemics, the actual COVID-19, all the social justice, racial inequality issues affecting the world. And then arguably the biggest story in college athletics of the last 20, 30 years, kind of behind the scenes of NIL and Alston. And it's like, how are we supposed to prioritize something like this? And oh yeah, we also have to do Title IX. Let's do the fun stuff, leadership, and oh hey, let's make sure these students are prepared for a career after sport. And what does that look like? So it's been something that a lot of our students have come to me and say, hey Roberto, this is a lot to process. A lot of my time management is kind of a little out of whack, and then there's also a lot of the mental health struggles that we're kind of working through, and as staff, as student athletes working together on those. So it's been really tough, and I don't want to say we've prioritized, because that would mean that we rank one thing ahead of the other. But it's been probably the hardest part over the last 2 years is to try and get everything taken care of in effective and efficient way, so that the students can take really the most that they're getting from these programs.
Absolutely. Thank you, Roberto, for sharing that. Christina, I would love to hear your perspective as well, having the coach hat, having the communications hat, the administrator hat, the Title IX hat, all the things. Would love to hear your perspective on that too.
I think for me in our situation at Walsh, we're not like the other panelists here. I think one thing we took away from COVID is that we just have to learn how to pivot at any moment. And I think that things are still constantly changing, and we're just having to deal with that as they come about on our plates. We've learned as a campus to rely heavily on each other, not just on our department. And I think that is another really, if I say a positive thing that came out of COVID, is that we learned how to reach out across campus to departments that we may not have done prior to. So we're really kind of just piggybacking each other right now to see, again, to keep that student athlete experience in mind, even our whole student body, and how we can make sure that they're still getting that full experience that we try to offer at Walsh. From a coaching perspective, it's definitely added its hiccups. And we kind of approach our season with that same mindset, just knowing that things can unfortunately change at the drop of a dime. And so for us, we're just always making sure that when we're practicing and we're competing, that we're present in that moment so that we can just enjoy it, because unfortunately, we don't know if it's going to be taken away again. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Marlon, Ragean, anything before we jump into the next phase here?
I mean, we know it's overwhelming right now. I I like to equate it to, this is probably the hardest we've ever worked in our careers, just because of everything and being shut down and having to depend. But they both spoke to it. We now need to lean on each other. That's just not our only own colleagues within the department, but our colleagues on campus. And I think a lot of us were able to see that over this past year, where if we needed something for a student, a staff member, everybody was trying to pick up where they could. And now we're trying to thin line it out. Like Roberto said, you don't want to over prioritize something for something else, but okay, what can we handle digitally? Because that's we've learned now that Zoom and all these digital platforms work. And then what absolutely has to be in person, that we can deliver that way. So either something quick hits, 20-minute hits, or this is a full in person where we need dialogue back and forth to really get the full impact of it. So this has shifted all of us, but I think once we get through this full year and half of next year, we'll finally be able to kind of be back on even ground. But right now we're just, I think, all just trying to figure out how to make it work with the new time that we're living in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
just, sorry, Marlon, you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to touch on, Ragean, what you mentioned is sort of, what are some of the things that you can tackle digitally, right? And that's something that we've had to kind of adapt a little bit here. And through that student athlete feedback, hey, what do you want to see in person? Because we know that the students are just really itching to get back to that in-person programming atmosphere, right? So what can we tackle through maybe a module versus what has to be in person with your team versus with another team, or the entire student athlete population. So that's been a way that I've had to personally kind of change a lot of how I program and format a lot of it. So I totally agree, Ragean.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna add just a little touch point here, but and I think everybody said it, but I think the biggest thing when you talk about time management is we have to be cautious of overload, and because everything's important, right? Like when we look at from our perspective, mental health is really important. Here I also serve as the chief diversity person, so that's important, right? And then I'm also Title IX education. Well, that's important, so it's like, how do we make sure that we are handling all these things that are important, but still being sensitive to our student athletes, right? Because they're still in class, they're still practicing, they're still competing. So now you're like, hey, but we also need to touch on these 10 other things. Oh, and by the way, NIL is a whole other monster out there that we need to tackle in this space. And so I think that's the biggest thing that we've really thought about is, okay, let's really be intentional, and how can we not overload our student athletes? Because quite honestly, we could be doing a program every night of the week, 4 days a week, because we're not going to do anything on Fridays, and we may not cover everything that we need to cover. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's just really being cautious of the overload and how we can balance, to everyone's point, sort of the in-person and the digital aspects and what's really important. Thinking what's really important. So Roberto brought up a really good point there. Talk to your student athletes, and get their thoughts.
Absolutely. Another great segue here. I want to get into kind of more of a conversation on how y'all are using technology specifically on your campuses. So I think to what everybody said, it sounds like there's kind of a hybrid that's happening right now, right? Like I think pre-COVID, it was let's do it in person. We're not really thinking about the digital space from a student athlete development standpoint. And then during COVID, of course, mostly in the virtual space. Now we're kind of moving into this hybrid space, which seems to be like it's going to be a more sustainable model for a lot of folks on campus. I don't know that perception exists across the board or outside of schools who are using technology to help with their student athlete development programming on campus, or even staff in some cases. So I want to get into that conversation. And Christina, let's start with you. So I would love to hear just kind of what are some ways that you're using game plans specifically on campus to enhance the student athlete experience at Walsh?
So I just was named SWA in July. So for me, I had 3 weeks maybe to kind of really understand and get to know how game plan works. I was familiar with it just from a coaching perspective because my team had to be a part of it. But outside of that, I was, pretty clueless. So once I started to really dive into all that you guys offer, I was so pleasantly surprised that I have so many plans in the future to involve our campus wide using Game Plan. So for us currently at this moment, we obviously use Game Plan for all of our student athlete development, whether it's Title IX, mental health awareness, sexual violence. We do different things with NCAA and drug awareness there. We actually had Hannah, and I'm not sure if Hannah's on this call or not, but shout out to Hannah because she's absolutely amazing. But Hannah actually jumped on a Zoom last week with our SAC group, which I'm the advisor for there. And she kind of went through how they can create online profiles, how they can look up and search the hundreds of thousands of employers you guys have on your database. So currently that is a really big push for us with our administration on the athletic side, is to make sure that our student athletes are using your platform to the best of their ability. We know they all have their phones in their hands literally all day if they're not practicing, right, or they're sleeping. So for them to have that ability to just simply log on to the app, whether they're walking to class, waiting for class to start, if they're traveling, in the team bus to get from here or there, even taking just 10 or 15 minutes out of their day to jump on and see the opportunities that are available to them that you provide, I think is invaluable. So that's probably the biggest thing that we're trying to push with you guys right now.
Awesome. I love it. So I want to jump into, we talked about at the very beginning, kind of some of the additional uses, right? Game Plan, Athlete Viewpoint, of course, we acquired last fall, which is super exciting for us. And we just rolled out today the Tell Us launch press release with Memphis. So it feels right to go to Marlon next on this. Marlon, you have been using Game Plan for a while. You are obviously familiar with Athlete Viewpoint, served on the board there. Both have been implemented at Memphis. So can you share a little bit about how Athlete Viewpoint has helped create another touch point with your student athletes at Memphis?
Yeah, it was funny because we were using Game Plan and we're using Athlete Viewpoint, and one of the things that I'm extremely conscious of is sort of software or technology overload, right? So how many apps are we asking our student athletes to use, because we have Teamworks and we have whatever else. I mean, there's just so many things. And so one, the merger was I was excited about that because obviously I've known the Game Plan folks for a really long time, and Vin and Christian are just amazing people. And then I've gotten to know, Jennifer and Mike Cross really well at Athlete Viewpoint, and then serving on their board. So it was like a merger of like two just awesome people, right? So I'm like, okay, this is good. And then when the Tell Us feature came about, I was like, okay, this is a game changer, because now the student athletes are in the app for, hey, I can do my education. We can create content, personalized content to Memphis. So that's where we're doing that part too. And now if they want to tell us about their experience, or, hey, there's an issue that's going on right now, they can go ahead and give us that feedback. And so I think it really fit well. Like the merger fits well with kind of our overall philosophy. It's like, we don't want them to have to go into 20 different things, right? So this really helped us sort of narrow that focus in, but also put a higher premium on the use of Game Plan, right? Because now what you hope is they're in it all the time. We use it for our student athlete handbook. So there's a lot of different touch points for them, kind of throughout their time here. Through that. So really excited. I'm excited to see what other future things come out of this. So between Athlete Viewpoint and Game Plan, I mean, I got some thoughts. So Van, Jen, I'm happy to share anytime you're ready.
So Marlon, Tell Us is relatively new, right? We launched that last fall as well, shortly after the merger, kind of the first integrated piece. So
Yeah.
for anybody who's on that isn't aware, Tell Us is an anonymous reporting tool, the first kind of fully integrated feature between Athlete Viewpoint and Game Plan, where student athletes can now log into their Game Plan app, can click on their profile, go down, hit Tell Us, and then it's going to take them through a series of questions. It can be positive stuff, talking about their experience. It can also be that anonymous reporting feature, right? If there's biased language happening on a team or within the department, if there's a mental health issue, not a crisis, not an immediate crisis, we want you to report that to the hotline numbers, to the appropriate numbers on campus. But student athletes now have more of an ability to kind of say exactly what's happening, and without having the kind of fear or maybe hesitation of having their name attached to those things, which is great too. So we're excited, obviously, Marlon, to have that rolled out on Memphis's campus and to continue doing that with other Game Plan partners as well. I would love for you to touch just maybe briefly on Athlete Viewpoint specifically, how you've been able to use that, maybe why you got started with it at Memphis.
Yeah, so I did not list all the things that I do because we'd still be talking about it. So, but one of the things that I oversee is sort of the end of the year process and then exit interviews for our student athletes. And when I got to Memphis, we really didn't have a good process. And we didn't have a way for me to look at historical data or even be able to compile. Everything was hand done. I'm like, look, I need to work more efficiently. I need to work smarter than harder, right? So looking around, Athlete Viewpoint was presented to me. And after I had some conversations with the folks there at Athlete Viewpoint, I realized, okay, now I can do exit interviews. We can do kind of end of season surveys of our student athletes. So, and everything is housed in one spot. Plus I get a dashboard, and now with the new reporting features, which are absolutely fantastic. So now, like, I printed out reports for our sport administrators, and it had 3 years worth of data, but you can see the trends with every sport, right? So I can print out the volleyball report and you can see how trends in different areas, and it's really quick and easy. Plus I can also dive into, and I have all the different comments, but also now I can evaluate every single department that really touches our student athlete experience, and I can send that out. So I can create a report for sports medicine and say, hey, here's all the feedback we've received on sports medicine. Here's our student athlete development pieces. So student athletes have given us, kind of feedback on that. Hey, academics, here's your stuff. So I think it really allows us to be a little bit more efficient, to capture more information and more data, but also be able to have a historical standpoint. So if Marlon is no longer here, the next person that comes in and handles this can still go back and see what has happened over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And to me, that was really the most important thing, was that historical piece. And just the ease of use. And you can customize the questions. I didn't want some cookie cutter program. So this really allows you to customize some questions. Yes, you need to have some standardized questions so you can get some of the data points, for comparison nationally and all the rest of it. But it really does allow you to kind of customize to your campus what your needs are. And so I thought that feature also was something that was really attractive to me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marlon, for sharing that. We appreciate it. So Ragean, I want to jump to you next. You've just recently gotten started with Game Plan. I think we did our kickoff maybe within the last month and a half, something like that. And you touched on it a little bit, how you're intending to use it on campus. So I would love to hear more about, intended use for Game Plan, but would also love to hear kind of how it came to be. So you have a unique, and I know you won't share all details today, but you have a unique, obviously, funding situation. And so just whatever you're willing to share about that would be awesome.
So yeah, we'll talk about the funding situation. So we've been trying to do Game Plan for a while, and I can't go into detail with the place that we're receiving the funds from, but we were given, I would say, a good amount of money for the next 5 years, payment out every year for X amount of dollars, to focus on mental health, career development, diversity and inclusion programming, and really more towards the diversity inclusion programming in those aspects of financial literacy, mental health, career services. And so we're just waiting. We're waiting for our press release for that, but we're also waiting for the criteria that I have to stick to spend those funds. But I'm already spending a little bit of funds to start out, and that was through game plan. So that's how we were able to move a little bit quicker, just to show them like we have a platform that we want to be able to do programming on. But I wanted to get started a little bit earlier with the pilot program that we've got going on right now. So we have an entrepreneurship program on campus called Venture Prize. And so our partners from campus are working with 10 of our student athletes that have NIL deals and how to build and grow their business. And so there's about, looking at the thing that the layout right now, there's 4 different modules that they have to complete with it. It's in person and virtual learning. So that's where we'll utilize the platform to do some of the virtual learning database for it. But then also it's a time for students to critique the program before we roll it out for all student athletes in the next year, for those that are looking to either build a business themselves or still in that NIL space. Obviously, we're using Compass. We already had that programming prior to game plan. So now able to shift everything to the platform and have it in one area has worked out for us. But also our financial literacy director on campus, prior to game plan, we had built a badge system for our student athletes. So again, just deployment of the information is going to be a lot easier. It goes back to Marlon and what Roberto said just about timing. We sat down and looked at a calendar, and I was like, there's no way we can do all this programming for our students in person. It's just not going to work. I wouldn't want to do it. It's just too much. So through game plan, that's how we figure we're going to be able to get a lot more things done on the students' time. So far as for coaches and staff, there'll be leadership training opportunities that I can build in the system for our coaches and staff, especially, I mean, we have a lot of young coaches and we're noticing there's just certain areas that we need to make sure that they're getting education on. We've been, 2 years missed from them having their professional conferences. So anything that we can help get them closer to or improving their coaching skills, communication skills, and everything else, that's what we'll have ready for them for our more seasoned coaches. Bigger picture type items in the leadership realm, and then just for staff as well, asking them what do they need from a leadership aspect, but also there's some staff that need financial literacy training, and what level is that needed at? And again, does it need to be an hour long, or is it something that could be 15, 20 minutes for them? And so utilizing the platform that way. So we've got a lot of things. Our compliance office doing their education training now that they can implement through the program, orientation for our new student athletes coming in. We just had a housing meeting the other night with all of our new students, and insurance and medical, and they will also receive orientation that we'll build in the platform. And they've been told that, so now that they can get used to it. So that'll be 100 students already used to utilizing game plan before they even get here. It's our current students that, with all these different things going on, we've got to get them used to being on the platform with it. Everybody's been deployed their information and how to enroll, but we'll use the rest of the semester to get them all added in, as well as coaches and staff, and then we'll go from there. The good part is a lot of them from enrolling in Compass, they were already in the system, and now we just have to make sure they log into the game plan system. But that's really our big pie in the sky, is to get more training out at their fingertips a lot quicker and over a lot more subjects. And it'll be incentivized either through a diversity badge, a financial badge, so things that they can add to their resume. And again, we have different committees. I have a DE&I committee that has a lot of faculty staff from campus on it, and they'll work with me to build that D&I committee, or that badge for it. And then Dr. Geckley and I have already created the financial literacy badge. So again, incentivizing the work that they're doing to put on there. And then obviously we've got Title IX and all the required things that we have to do, but we noticed healthy relationship communication. We didn't have time for that programming. So now that you all have One Love, which I've always loved that programming in it, I can again deploy that information in our teams. And sometimes it's going to be strictly for one team because that's what the coaches requested. I don't have it in the program to do it for everybody, but I will send that information to that one team so they can get that taken care of, and then just go from there. And then ask my partners what they're doing at their institutions, so we can build it here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know you can't share details of who the money is coming from. Would you be willing to share how that came to be? So was it something y'all thought out, or?
Yeah, so through the programming, when the height of the pandemic and George Floyd, we had created our United in Gold programming, our initiative. And so when it came time to look for donor, I've been looking for a sponsor, donor, whoever. And it's almost like the stars aligned with campus, our athletic department. And they said, Ragean, what are you doing in this space? And can you present your deck to us to see what you're doing for student, staff, and coaches? And then they took that information, and the place wanted to capitalize on that and help fund it for us. And so that's how we did it. We hope to, with that money as well, do field trips and everything else, so they can be at the locations if we've got to bring them downtown, uptown, or if it's somewhere in the social justice area, to museums and whatnot, again, to give them that real life. And when we visit, when we get ready to switch over conferences, we're going to be in a lot of different states that have historical opportunities for us to go to, and that will be funded to tell the coach, hey, if you've got a gap of time, it'll be paid through this fund for your student athletes to get this experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Ragean, for sharing that. It's an exciting partnership.
Yeah.
All right. So next thing that I want to do is, Roberto, jump to you, last but not least, on these directed questions here. So y'all, like Charlotte, you're also users of Compass, obviously an NIL kind of specific platform. So what does your use look like for both Compass and for Game Plan at Seton Hall? And how have they both helped Seton Hall student athletes?
Yeah. So with Compass, it was obviously, come June of 21, we were in that position where we needed to make a decision to, on an NIL software that we can roll out to the student athletes, so that it just wasn't a pen and paper disclosure system. New Jersey's a little unique. We don't have a state law in effect yet. We've been told that it's coming, whatever that means. But so we had to go off of what we thought it would be. Fortunately, our university's legal counsel, they saw some drafts of what the law was looking like it would turn out to be. As we know, those things change, but through that's how we devised our policies on NIL. And once we were able to kind of move in that direction, that's when we were fortunate enough to partner up with Compass. And that's when, we obviously selected Compass because we thought it was for us, for Seton Hall. It made the most sense in terms of the features and educational opportunities and the disclosure behind it. So we rolled it out, and immediately we saw some traction on it with our students. One thing that we've learned is NIL is not for everyone, and that's okay. There's a lot of student athletes who they're just kind of like, it's not really something I really care about. And then we have those entrepreneurs who are all about it. They want to learn, they want to take those modules. They're the ones sort of initiating those cold conversations on Instagram, right, with brands and companies, so that they can, partner up, which is great. And one of the awesome features is I'm a stat nerd, so I dig into the insights on Compass, and that's what really kind of gives me that information in terms of what types of organizations and what sports are student athletes, and it's really been great because we take that information and I regurgitate it back to our students. You know, one of the unique things that we've done here is set up NIL and nuggets. So it's sort of like an event that we did before games in the fall, where, you know, we got some little snacks and some Chick-fil-A nuggets, and it was really talking NIL with the students and saying, hey, you know, these are the modules that you're tackling. Hey, these are the companies that your peers are partnering with. Like, a lot of people have found success with this company. Maybe you want to hit them up on Instagram because that's how everybody else is doing it. And so that's been a really cool feature to plug the program and the platform, should I say, that the students really took advantage of. And, you know, I'm able to go in on the back end and I see what modules the students are taking. And it was really, really interesting, but not surprising that our two most common modules are I checked this morning, the NIL and financial aid impact and the NIL and income taxes. Those are the two most accessed modules, and it's not even close from our student athletes. It's almost like 10-1 difference from everything else. So they're interested, they're curious, they want to learn more about NIL and how it impacts them. And you know, we wanted to really provide those educational opportunities for them through that. So with that partnership, then you kind of we transitioned into game plan, and I've always you know, I've had conversations over the years with game plan and different reps there, and it was just something that we could never really get off the ground for a variety of reasons. But once we were able to secure that Compass partnership and we got that line of communication was open again, fortunately we were able to start it up early in the fall, and that's something that we've been implementing since early October with our student athletes. And that's been something that's been really, really helpful, where the two sister companies can, you know, the modules are on both, right? So a student athlete can be in game plan and access their Compass module, and I'm able to see it on the back end, or you know, so it's really, the integration is really big, because as Marlon mentioned earlier, the overload of platforms and usernames and access, you know, they have enough going on. So how can we limit, you know, their sort of responsibilities, you know, in a clean and concise way? So that's what was great about game plan, that I'm able to kind of plug it for both, and they're able to go in and see those Compass modules on game plan. And if they want to, if they're finishing up a module that I've assigned to them, they can immediately go in and access, you know, Compass module that might intrigue them. So it's been a really, really great partnership. And one of the things I've learned is that, you know, so I've assigned modules to students sort of like optionally. Hey, as you wish, you can complete them, up to you. And, you know, inevitably there's always a couple that will take a module that's not assigned to them just because they want to learn a little bit more about it. And the best part is when they're satisfied with it, when they find it very helpful, I can tell who else takes it, because, you know, they're sharing and promoting it. Hey, I took that. That was pretty neat. You know, it was quick. You know, one of the things I like to plug is our teams fly a lot of places, and the airport is about 30 minutes away. So I always tell them, hey, knock out those two modules on the way to the airport, you know, or as you're waiting to board the plane. Like, you're not doing anything else, really. So it's an easy sell on that, and the accessibility and how easy it is to do it. And I go through the modules that I assign. So I tell them, hey, I went through it. You got questions on it? I'm happy to talk about it. It's easy. I know you probably didn't complete it because you forgot to click the button at the bottom. So it's something that I can have those conversations with them too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Roberto, for sharing that. Appreciate that, especially since we talked about NIL being one of the crazy landscape changers of definitely this year. And obviously we know it's going to continue to do so. What I would love to do to wrap up, I know we've got about 21 more minutes. I promised Marlon 5 minutes at the end. So we're going to try and roll through it here in 15, 16. But what I want to do is have each of you answer this question. So we've talked about the craziness. We've talked about the different hats you wear on campus. What I would love to know is, how does the use of technology support you in your role on campus? How does it make your job more manageable?
You want to go, Marlon?
No, you can go.
No, okay. for me, I can't be in 20 places at one time, neither can our director of student athlete development. So again, it's just going to allow us to get more information out a lot faster with a quicker turnaround, and give some time back to the student athletes as well as our staff that have to go through the training. But that's probably going to be the biggest thing, is giving them a large variety of things that they can learn, but without having to take time away from them to be in person, and they can possibly do it in the comfort of their own home.
Thank you, Ragean.
That's why I let Ragean go first, because I knew she was going to hit on a couple nuggets I didn't have to touch on. So absolutely, with all the different areas that, I currently have my hands in, I can't be everywhere. I think the biggest role that this plays is feedback, right? So the athlete viewpoint provides feedback on their experiences, and then we're better able to tailor the modules education, what they're looking for through game plan. Now we're even looking at, hey, let's create a 4-year game plan sort of curriculum, right? So we can touch on different things and really be target our freshmen and sophomores. So I think this really allows us to be more intentional. And the last thing that it really is doing sort of these, is I like the NIL and nuggets, but kind of these, hey, do the module and then let's do an in-person chat about it, right? Like do the module and let's meet in person and let's kind of expand on, let's take a little deeper dive into it. So I think there's so much possibility, and our student athletes are in a place right now, I think everybody is, where it's sort of like Zoom overload and they want some in person. So if you can say, hey, well, why don't you do this? And then let's come in and talk about it, whether it's small group or whatever else, and really get that in-person engagement. So now you're hitting them really in 2 different spaces. But I think that's really the biggest thing is that feedback, and really the ability to provide them really a wide variety and a holistic access to a lot of different information. And some of the stuff we haven't even talked about is, especially even like for our football players, NFL modules, are really good. And we're going to start diving better into that with our director of player development and the career pieces, right? So there's some pieces on there, and then connecting with your alumni. So there's such a wide range. And this, when you look at game plan in general, this really, I look at it as it should be from really the beginning till you decide you don't want to use it anymore, right? But you should be able to use it as an alumni and moving forward. And I think that's the really cool piece, is it allows you a touch point through their 4 years, but even afterwards, stay connected with your alumni.
That's why we say guiding 100% of athletes through 100% of their journeys. Marlon, you encapsulated that perfectly. We love it. We love it. Christina, Roberto, thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think for me, again, being probably the newest member to deal with game plan, and even our university as a whole, I think we've only been using you guys for 3 years max. I think the ease of use is probably the biggest and most appealing thing for us. I think, since I oversee everything, and it's just so easy for me to distribute that information, to check up and make sure that our student athletes are staying on top of the things that we're asking them to do. But I think the most unique thing about it is it has really helped us start conversations about topics and issues that we may not have really thought about, but they're platforms on game plan. And so we're really starting to dive more into that, not just in athletics, but university as a whole. And so I think for us moving forward, it's really just going to kind of help put those wheels in motion for us and implement it into, the everyday life of our student athlete.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of finish it off with, what I really enjoy is that this allows me to not necessarily be an expert in everything, right? Like there's a lot of things that I'm good at, and there's a lot of things that I'm just not an expert in. And I can say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable hosting a specific workshop on this topic, so I can use these resources here on this end. So that maybe, maybe it would be great to do it in person, but by doing it virtually, or digitally through the platform that they can go in and log in, that's something that they can take whenever. I can meet them where they're at. And I like to promote it as take these micro modules, not a regular module, a micro module, because I think of, us, we take modules all the time as part of like our daily, compliance at work with the university. And some of these modules can be over an hour long. That's not necessarily the case here. So I'll kind of spin it as a micro. That means quick, short, small, it won't take too much time. So that's kind of how I like to push it on there. And so that maybe they're more inclined to go through something like that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Roberto. And thank you everybody for sharing that and how it makes your job more manageable. We heard, obviously, all of you are wearing a lot of hats, so I know that all of you have a busy rest of your afternoon. So we'll take this time here to wrap up. If y'all have questions, please feel free to shoot them to us at Game Plan specifically. Panelists are comfortable. We can share their emails out or their contact information out if folks have specific questions on what's going on their campus, or kind of more questions about how they got started and all those kind of things. But thank you again, panelists. Your insights, your knowledge, unmatched. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Taylor. Great job facilitating.
Thank you. Thank you.
Guys.
All right, everybody. We will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.